I just think that a lot of founders should just not talk to VCs. They're just not building VC backable businesses.
Right.
That doesn't make them any less cool. VCs are going to be fine if, I don't know, 30, 40, 50% of the companies that try to talk to VCs never speak to a VC again.
Right.
The VC industry is going to be okay. And those founders are probably going to be better off because they're going to fundraise and have capital that makes sense for their business.
Welcome to Innovate or Evaporate, the podcast where we explore the relentless pace of change and the innovators who drive it. Each episode, we dive deep into breakthrough ideas, unexpected journeys, and the fearless pioneers pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Today's guest is Peter Walker, head of insights at Carta and one of the sharpest minds translating startup data into real-world strategy. Peter's work has reshaped how founders, investors, and operators understand what's actually happening in venture capital. We caught up live at Rally to talk about power laws, down rounds, founder myths, and why not every business should take VC money. If you're ready for a conversation that blends candor, clarity, and a few contrarian truths, stay tuned because it's Innovate or Evaporate.
Welcome back to Innovate or Evaporate, where we explore the relentless pace of change and the innovators who drive it. I'm your host, Toph Day. Today we have Peter Walker, the head of insights at Carta. Peter's team is responsible for uncovering the key data and narratives across a private capital ecosystem, providing an unparalleled look at what's really happening in the world of startups, investors, and venture capital. Peter, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me, man. Thanks so much.
What you are doing for the startup community and scale-ups and growth companies is the Lord's work.
I love it.
I think I mentioned to you, and I've had 8 companies, 7 verticals over 30 years. What I used to spend, literally days, weeks, months doing, trying to figure out, and you couldn't get the data, actually.
Yep.
You're trying to piecemeal things together. And when you guys decided, 4 years ago, to start publishing data, absolutely amazing. So I want to go back in time a little bit.
Let's do it.
And we're here at Rally.
That's right.
You just came off the stage, right?
I did.
You spread the gospel.
Wonderful
up there,
experience.
data.
Loved it. Yep.
And so let's talk about what was the kind of the general tenor when you gave your talk today at Rally? What were kind of the highlights you hit and some of the Q&A that you experienced? And then I want to kind of dive into how you started doing what you're doing with the publishing the data. Then I'm going to go deep
Absolutely
into all sorts of data.
Let's do it. So quick recap on the talk is a state of venture in 2025, but we start those talks much, much earlier than most folks do. You know, people talk about fundraising, et cetera. We talk about it from okay, you incorporated a startup.
Yep.
How do you split equity amongst co-founders?
Yep.
What should you do with advisors? How do you hire your first 4 employees?
Yep.
The very early blocking and tackling of you're building a startup and you got to get a community around you to make it happen.
Yep.
And so I think that's whenever I give this talk, there's always people who have been in startups for a while that are nodding. And there's clearly a group of people that don't know very much about startups. And they're like,
Blank stare.
the heck is this? Yeah, exactly. Like,
What I got to do what?
what are you talking about? And then let's be honest, the big topic in the second half of the talk is what AI has done to startup fundraising. And just the bifurcation, the haves or have-nots, the chasm that exists right now between hot AI startups that are raising immense amounts of capital at crazy valuations and everyone who doesn't feel that sort of heat and the struggle, candidly, that many of them are having to fundraise at all. So tale of two cities. It's always the case in startups, but it feels more acute now than it has in a long time.
So one thing I noticed about, and I was mentioning before we started this podcast, that I literally remember your first post when you announced you're going to do this on LinkedIn. And literally,
You're no G, man. Not many people remember the first
I about
one.
fell out of my chair because I'm like, if he does what I think he's going to do, that's going to be insane. And so I'm curious about your background because one thing I notice about is that you don't just publish data. I feel like the way you illustrate that data, you're telling a story, you also do a narrative kind of around that data.
Yep.
And so I'm curious about you personally and your DNA, your background. What did you do before? How'd you get to Carta? What do you think your core skill set is?
We start at birth and then move forward. How far back we want to go?
Let's go to high school, college though. What'd you dream about?
Sure.
Did you ever think you're going to be doing this?
No, not necessarily. Although my dad is an entrepreneur, so the startup-y life. I don't even know if he called it a startup back then. Was kind of in the ether.
What was his business?
shipping and packaging.
Okay.
So completely different from, the tech startup of today, but really cool and interesting. We used to roll around as kids in the like packaging material.
Peanuts?
Yeah, 100%. Or like the bubble pop. Oh,
Right.
horrendous noises. So college, went to WashU in St. Louis. I actually started a company there with a couple friends. The goal of that company, if I'm being completely honest, was to not work at the hedge fund that I had been working at because I absolutely hated it. And like, I just wanted to not be in spreadsheets for a summer. But then it turned into a kind of a thing. It was like this merchandising business at music festivals. And so we sort of sold it, sort of like gave it to a bunch of college kids as we were graduating. But it's where I got the bug. I was like, I don't want to work at a big place. I want to work at small startups. And so then right out of school, I worked at this company called Public Relay that did natural language processing for media companies for like 6 years. And I ran data teams, I ran analytics teams, I ran marketing teams. I was like, you join as employee number 9 or 10. By the time we left, we were like 120 employees. You just like try your hand at 100 things.
Yeah.
And it's, there's a problem. Like somebody go solve that, which is the best part about startups. It's like, there's just so much agency in there. And so that was where I found two things. One, I was pretty good at narrative storytelling. And then two, I fell in love with data viz. Like I'm just such a nerd about charts and graphs.
Yep.
And so combining those two things, COVID hits, I take on a second job at the Atlantic magazine, helping them run their data viz team for COVID tracking. And so that was a whole other thing, horrendous moment, obviously, but really interesting illustration of like, if you have a data set that is worthy of explaining in this way, there's basically no limit to the amount of stories that you can tell that is useful to someone who's like starving for data. And so as project was winding down, I made a list of companies that we could run this motion for on a content marketing basis. And Carta was number one on that list. So got an introduction to the CMO, sort of pitched this job to them as like, it's not something that you're doing now, but I think it could be a cool, meaningful way that you could.
I didn't realize that. So you pitched the job to the CMO from outside the organization.
Correct. Yes. I had an in through one of the engineers at the Atlantic project, was working at Carta at the time, or had worked at Carta. And so she connected me with the CMO, and I just like sat down with Jane and was like, Jane, I love Carta. I have equity on Carta, but there's this whole realm of thing that people want from you that you're not doing, which is like market research. Like you could be, the goal was like make Carta the go-to source of information for startup in facts and figures.
Right.
And for free. Because the idea was, if you love us because the things that you read from us are valuable to you as a founder, when you need us next, you're going to come, we're going to be top of mind.
Yep.
And that's the whole motion, really. And it's been awesome. It's been an amazing experience.
All right. Well, so the whole backstory then makes total sense to me. I mean, you're an analytical storyteller, right? I mean, that's that background in a nutshell.
Sure.
Which is a very unique skill set, right? I mean, to have someone who loves the analytics, who loves the data, but then has the creative side of the brain to also storytell from that data, is that's a unique skill set.
I do find that I swim in data circles and I swim in marketing circles, and those two are pretty separate.
Yeah.
I know a lot of data scientists who want to give up and go up and do on-stage talks and stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's a translation layer between numbers to what they mean that I think is it's, if anyone's thinking about like, oh, what's a useful niche that I can get into, like that has been very helpful to me.
So, okay. So that I mean, that is so cool. So all of our listeners out there, you can go create your own job now. That's what we just heard. Peter did it.
Super easy, right?
You go towards a company, you're not doing X, and I can feel that. And the started.
Sure.
So you arrive at Carta, and so I'm curious about the data itself then. How much did you have to do a lot of work? Did the team have to do a lot of work to kind of get the data organized and structured?
Yeah, so this is where I got to lean on the fantastic work of our core data science team. So I run the insights team, but we obviously have a core data science that builds models for the whole company.
Yep.
And they had done a ton of work to make those models clean and useful for our just day-to-day operations. There's so much value that we can get from clean and useful data inside the app and all that kind of stuff. So I was working with, I would say, pretty functional data from day one. There was a ton of cleaning that had to go on in order to make it useful externally and just make sure that we were treating it with the privacy that it deserved and all that kind of stuff. So there were definitely some hoops to jump through, but I came in working off of this foundation, and then it was a question of, well, what do you do with it? Like, what do we start with? We have all this. We have 50,000 now startups on the platform. Where do you begin? And so I think here was if we've done anything differently, and we're not the first people to do this kind of content, the thing that we've done differently is, one, We put it out way, way, way more frequently. You know, we probably publish new data every day effectively on social, whereas used to be like, oh, this is going to be a quarterly report or an annual thing. Ours is like, if you want to be in the bloodstream of especially tech,
Right.
it's got to be way more frequent
Yes.
than that. And then the second thing was we talk about what founders care about. So it's not the sort of slightly more stale broad market reports. It's like, here's what safe valuations are right now.
Right.
Here's the kind of dilution you should be asking for when you go up and talk to those VCs. Here's the here's how many people are being hired across startups right now and how big your team is.
Yep.
If you're at Series A, Series B, et cetera. Like the stuff that you're going to go back and talk to your CFO about immediately following reading one of our charts.
Well, one thing I've noticed is you start off with the founder, but which is also value for investors too. But I've also noticed you start to publish investor VC data,
Yep.
which is equally important, right?
Yep.
And that way they can both be speaking the same language.
Yep.
As well. Real quick, on the 50,000 companies, how many of those are U.S. versus like cross-border?
So the 50,000 is actually just U.S. only.
It's all US
if you
only.
add in the international companies, it's probably more closer to 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that Europe mainly, or like are the
three biggest, so Canada, Europe, Singapore, and APAC generally. And then, you know, Israel, LATAM, there's like a bunch of sort of longer tail.
Yeah.
We're so close to having enough density in those global markets to start publishing the data from them too. And I'm super excited to do one of these globally at some point, because that's awesome.
It'll be magical.
I think that some of the global founders will be annoyed by the differences to the U.S. And I don't want to illustrate that too closely. So that's going to be an interesting one.
That's going to be pretty wild. All right. So where do we want to go next? I mean, there's so many places to go here. So maybe before I want to dive into some of what you're seeing with the data.
Sure.
But another topic we talked about on our prep call going back a couple months ago is that there seems to be, so we have 400 portfolio companies. We'll do roughly, we're up to about 100 deals a year. And these are check sizes anywhere between $20,000 and $2 million.
Yep.
At pre-seed, seed, Series A. And cross sectors. It's all over the board.
For sure.
And so one thing that that we see is a gap in founders' understanding of how VC works. And your observation was that you actually see that gap maybe even widening. And founders and investors we need to narrow that gap, right? So each party understands one another and the needs of each party.
For sure.
Let's just talk about that a little bit. I'll just kind of toss that out there and we'll go where you want to go with it.
I mean, it's a big topic. The thing that I see, one, this is not simply a founder problem. Like you and I were talking a little bit. There are, I'd say, many VCs who kind of fundamentally don't understand their business.
Their own business.
Yeah. But I do think that the core misapprehension is around power law. And just like everything coming back to this idea. And if you're a founder and you haven't thought critically about how the VCs actually make money down the road and return capital to LPs, some of their decision-making is completely bizarre to you.
Yeah.
You go, why? What are they? I have a business that could guarantee this steady amount of income and this amount of profit and blah, blah. And the VCs are like, no, thanks, I'm not interested.
Right.
I care about growth and explosion and outlier outcomes.
Yep.
And I want you to tell me stories about outlier outcomes or the potential for them. And some founders are just kind of allergic to that.
Yeah.
And so I do think that there's some education that needs to happen on the founder side. I also candidly think, and maybe you disagree here, I just think that a lot of founders should just not talk to VCs. They're just not building VC backable businesses.
Right.
That doesn't make them any less cool or
I think it's an
interesting or great.
important topic.
They need, like, VCs are going to be fine if, I don't know, 30, 40, 50% of the companies that try to talk to VCs never speak to a VC again.
Right.
The VC industry is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And those founders are probably going to be better off.
Right.
Because they're going to fundraise and have capital that makes sense for their business. And it's when the capital expectations and the founder expectations are misaligned, that's where you get all of my VCs were so terrible or they didn't support me. It was probably because you all were not aligned on what the goal was here.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very important point because it's almost like there's a general overall belief because of the headlines we read that somehow I'm successful if I've raised 5 million or 10 million and I've made it to a Series A or whatever it is. And that business may not be a true VC backable business because the odds of it having a 10x, outlier result, having a 40% IRR those odds are very low,
for sure.
right? And they get really frustrated when they get a lot of no's from VCs, not understanding how the model works, to your point.
And it's not just that the VCs. So one, VC is candidly incredibly good at talking about itself, right? Like way better than any sort of bootstrap startup is. VC as an industry is fantastic at monopolizing headlines because we have all these checkpoints.
Yeah.
We raised a Series A, and that means X, and oh, that's exciting. And people are using those fundraising announcements to hire more folks and brand build and all that stuff.
Right.
And the VCs want to celebrate it because that's how they get LPs into their fund and all that. Like it just is like it's a media circle as well as a fundraising circle. And then the other problem with venture, not problem, but the biggest thing that's changed about venture to me is just, damn, this thing takes a long time.
Yep.
And I think it's very hard for people to imagine something like this taking 15 years.
I was just going to say, it's 15 years roughly
Yes.
on average
Exactly.
for harvesting.
So it projecting yourself 15 years in the future is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And so that fundamentally it causes a lot of issues between founders and VCs. I think some of those are fixable, and I think some of those are structural, and they're just going to continue to exist. Yeah.
There's a ton of businesses out. The cheapest capital you can ever raise is customer capital.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
Revenue first.
That's the best kind of capital to ever raise.
Absolutely.
There's, I have friends that have owned businesses for 30 years, and, they may grow at 10 to 20%, pick a business, 10 to 20%, and they have incredible, massive businesses today, right? Growing in this term lifestyle. Like lifestyle does not mean small or not good.
Right.
It means you're in control of every step.
We need a different name.
I like that
I'm
idea.
actually firmly of the belief that half of the problems with venture is just we're bad at naming things.
Yeah.
Or venture is very good at naming things, and therefore it gets to basically be the default way that people think about it.
The venture, sexy, successful,
100% lifestyle,
small bad.
lame, boring, nobody
right,
cares.
right.
If you're ambitious, how dare you try a
Right.
lifestyle
Yeah.
business? Where it's like, actually, no, if you want to make a lot of money, it's probably better to do a lifestyle business. Yeah. Unless you're gonna be Mark Zuckerberg.
You're not on that gerbil wheel. right?
100%. And you don't have to. There is such a beauty to not being beholden to other people's expectations.
Yep.
Like VC, if you take money from VC, you are on the hamster wheel
That's right.
and you need to run.
Yep.
And if you are not running, and let's be honest, some businesses will have a down year where they're
Absolutely.
crawling, not running.
Almost all of them. 9 out
Yeah,
of 10 will.
Exactly. Even the VC backed ones, like one time, okay, we get it. A couple times,
Yeah.
they'll just start looking elsewhere.
That's right.
And
They'll
it-
abandon ship.
it's
Yeah,
just it's like a fact of the business, you
Yeah.
know. So you have to kind of know that going in. And if you don't want that, don't take their capital
That's right.
and build an amazing thing. And I do think that there's a problem. One of the problems with VC versus lifestyle is lifestyle used to connote something that wasn't tech. So VC was tech,
True.
and then lifestyle was non-tech.
Yeah.
And now I think it's so obvious that you can build very beautiful tech-enabled or tech-denominated businesses that are lifestyle companies.
Yep.
Just, you don't need to VC to build software.
Yes.
Those two terms are not synonymous.
The convergence right now of entrepreneurship through acquisition.
Yeah.
And so there's all of these wonderful businesses that someone's owned for 40 years. It might be 10 million, it might be 50 million. And it's in an industry where they're just going to need that widget.
Yep.
They're going to need that service time and time again. But no technology has been inserted into that business to be enabled. And that is such a massive opportunity for folks in the tech industry to go buy those businesses, infuse them with technology, right? Get the data structured.
Yep.
It can mean many different things. What are you seeing much out when you talk out in the market? Are you seeing much with all that?
We are. The capital structures, I would say, are not quite ready for that. So your average early stage VC is not going to be super interested about like a laundromat PE roll up that then inserts technology into
Right.
the capital structure.
Right.
But I do think that this is just as AI as a moment has caused this explosion of startups. And there's so many different ideas, and old categories are fresh again, and categories that never had tech are maybe available to it now. I think that we need to see a similar Cambrian explosion of financing types. Different kinds of capital from different kinds of LPs that have different expectations about return rate, timeline, et cetera. Like not every, even VC business needs to be on the same venture timeline, 15-year, blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It's just that is the model that's worked, so it's the model that's easiest to default to. But that's not necessarily the model that's right for your business.
Yep.
We're seeing this a lot with the companies that want a seed strap, where they say, I want one round of financing, and then I don't want to raise from VCs again. Well, that sounds great, And for a founder, it is great. That's awesome. But for the VCs, they're like, okay, so no markups ever? And then 10 years down the road, you sell maybe? Like that's a tough case to make to my LPs, right? I want the markups along the way so I can show progress.
Yep.
What's needed there is not to say that the VC model is bad or dead. It's to be like, okay, cool, we should have a seed strap model from LPs who understand what that is. And that all of that requires time. It's time to raise the funds. It's time to convince new LPs to jump on this new thing. It's time to prove returns. There's just like we're at the beginning of what I think will be a capital diversification that's going to be really interesting and cool.
I'm going to bring up something that might be a little controversial.
Ooh.
And I mean this with all the love out there for the listeners and especially those in VC. So
Doesn't sound like you do. So it's a strange caveat.
So the way the VC world works, and I mean, there's so much change going on this last, even 5 years, but especially 2 years, right?
Yep.
And especially like in B2B SaaS, I mean, this last couple of years, just a wild,
Revolution.
uncharted
Yep.
territory. And you just mentioned markups a moment ago. And companies are going to go through ebbs and flows. They're going to have problems. They might need to rebuild with modern technology, and which we're encouraging portfolio companies in our portfolio to do. Like literally put yourself out of business by building this in a new way,
Yeah.
a new, better way.
Definitely.
And then just shift over. Doesn't mean we're not asking you to fire everybody.
Right.
Because all those people can be repurposed, be much more efficient, et cetera. But some of these companies they're hitting a brick wall. You can see it coming a mile away.
Yeah.
And it might be 6 months out, a year out. And you need to recap. You got to restructure. And that means the old down round.
The old down round.
And it's
Potentially a cram down.
going to mean a cram down.
Yeah.
And it's painful.
Yeah.
But if you want the company to survive and legitimately get it right sized for that eventual next round and do the bridge, it's going to involve cram down and try to stay away from these 1.5, 2, and even 3x prefs in the bridges,
Don't.
which are painful for the founder. And I think actually, honestly, are not good for the VCs either. But the VCs that fight the recap and the valuation, they want to keep it flat because of not being able to having to mark stuff down.
Optics,
Because they're going to go raise the next fund in 18 months.
Yeah. They're saddling the company with worse terms.
With worse terms.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a proliferation of those of anything in that
So
field?
this is such a meaty topic. There's we are seeing we saw a gigantic increase in down rounds.
Yep.
In 23, 24. We're starting to see that ebb a little bit. So percentage of down rounds, it used to be like 1 in 5 companies in 23 was taking a down round. 1 in 5 rounds on Carta was a down round, which is wildly high.
Yeah.
Now it's more like 15%. So getting back to normal, which is about 10.
Yeah.
Bridges are far more likely to be down rounds than new primaries. And then you get to talk about the terms. So like, is this a flat valuation, but the underlying terms include participation and liquidation preference and cumulative dividends that are screwing the rest of the cap, the common stock in particular?
Yep.
We saw a lot of that in 2023. We're seeing less of it now.
Yeah.
I'm with you that I think that the VCs who insert really onerous terms, I think it makes so much more sense for late stage companies for whom an exit is actually fairly realistic. If you're doing that at Series A, you're just handicapping these people that are then going to continue to work for you. On the founder side, though, you're 100% right. Look at 2021. So many companies that you are aware of and respect took down rounds. They just got over their skis.
Right.
And like we all went a little wild in 21. We valued things too highly. It's okay to take a down round. Facebook took a down round before it IPO'd, right? Some of these IPOs are down rounds in and of themselves. They're IPOing at a price underneath the last private price. So like, it is not a death knell.
Yeah.
It's not fun. It sucks.
It's not fun.
But
sucks.
it is not a death
Sometimes
knell,
it's
and
necessary.
sometimes it's necessary. Yes.
Yeah.
And so the goal is always default alive.
Yeah.
Can you keep this business running? And then you leave optionality for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you seeing with valuations? So let's go like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 markets. And you could pick any stage you want to. Now we're back to the old buzzwords of stages and whatnot, but
Sure.
that's kind of how the data is probably sorted. So
It is.
it is what it is.
For better or for worse.
Better,
Yeah.
of course. So, but what do you kind of see from a tier 1 market versus a tier 3 market in terms of valuations and round sizes?
Should we define some tiers? You want to put
Yes.
some names on them? Okay. Tier 1, and I will say there is a bifurcation between tiers in terms of valuations for sure, but there's also within each city a bifurcation between those that are talking to coastal funds, like it's not
Yeah.
the case that coastal funds never invest into Colorado companies, for instance.
Right.
Like it happens. Okay, so tier one,
And by the way, real quick, before you define these,
sure.
tier 1, 2, and 3 doesn't mean good, bad.
Yeah.
It just means
Let's add the necessary
right,
caveats.
these
Yeah.
are all great markets to start and grow businesses.
I talk about them in terms of the maturity of the venture ecosystem. So I think it is plain on its face. There is no more mature venture ecosystem in the U.S. than San Francisco.
Right.
It has been the longest. It has the deepest capital markets. Like all that is true.
Yep.
What are the tier one markets? Really, it's SF New York and maybe Boston.
Yep.
Boston in certain industries, but candidly, I think it's mostly SF and New York.
Yep.
And SF meaning the Bay.
Right.
Generally. Tier two markets: L.A., Boston, if you don't include it in tier one, Seattle, and Austin. Fighting for fourth on that leaderboard. Good, strong early stage markets, growing late stage markets, a history of investing into venture-backed businesses, etc. Everything else is basically on the same level. There are places in the country like Colorado or in Denver, etc., that are further along, and then there are some up-and-comers. Everyone's favorite city was Miami a couple years ago. Not so much anymore. But that I would say is a wide tier three. Differences in valuation. Right now, let's take a Series A valuation in San Francisco. The median Series A pre-money in San Francisco is like $55 million, plus 12 or 14 million raised. And you're talking about a $70 million company in SF post-money at Series A. That is wildly expensive. That's expensive as it has ever been.
Yeah.
Tier two, take 20% off that. Tier three, take 30 to 40% off.
Okay.
There is a big gap.
Yep.
The gap is also AI, not AI. Right. So you could see even within San Francisco, if you are not an AI native software company, your valuation gets dinged 20 to 30%. So everyone is excited about one theme right now. And it seems that the heart of that theme is in SF, and the craziest frenzy and FOMO happens in those deals. And that, all the stories that you read on TechCrunch or The Information or whatever, they're not wrong. They're definitely happening. They're just not the whole market. It kind of feels like this is the gold rush. But there's only a certain level of gold rush, and then everywhere else in venture, it's business as normal or even maybe a little slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a study done. I wish I could remember who did this. I've been trying to find it. It was on LinkedIn. Somebody put it out there. It might have been like M25 out of Chicago, but somebody did a study. And I'm curious if you had the data to do this, but they looked at the return profiles of the various markets.
Yep.
And this kind of this idea of middle corridor or tier three actually produces better returns than the tier ones. And it was by like 0.5%. It was a really small margin.
Sure.
But overall, looking at everything holistically in venture, have you looked at this potential phenomenon?
We've done a little bit of that analysis. Candidly, our data is not quite old enough to do the full exit returns that we'd want to, because Carta was founded in 2013.
Yep.
So we're just over a decade.
Yep.
So just those first companies are fully IPO'd, et cetera. In general, it wouldn't surprise me if tier three and tier two city returns are on the level with SF in terms of capital efficiency. Size, it won't be.
Right.
Size,
No,
you are not,
size.
the biggest IPOs will come from San Francisco, New York.
Yeah.
And then it's a question of density of the availability of those returns, right? So that plus fund size is a huge factor here.
Yeah.
If you're Andreessen, you by definition, based on how much you've raised, you can't invest into small out exits.
Right.
Like you need these exits to be $1 billion is not enough anymore. Decacorns,
Right.
you need a Figma level exit of what are they, 70 billion? Like
How long can we keep this up?
we can't. It's a bubble, man. But it also suggests that just like we had a naming conversation about lifestyle,
Right.
venture capital is a far too broad a word. It's talking about venture capital funds that have $25 million to invest into seed companies, and we're talking about Andreessen that has $9 billion to invest into everything. Those are different worlds. We need to talk about them as though they're different things, even though they influence each other. And obviously, Andreessen can play at seed stage too.
Right.
But there really are fundamentally different games being played, and so I'm not exactly sure what the language needs to be. But we got to start talking about these things as fundamentally different, because they really are playing totally different games.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting observation. Yeah, but just one more note on that lifestyle concept. I've had conversations with founders before, and I used the term lifestyle, and they took offense to it.
Of course.
And I'm like, Oh, no offenses meant at all. Like it's a real question as a founder. I think a lot of times, quite frankly, if I think about some of the stuff I've done in the past, sometimes I didn't ask myself in this business, what do I really want out of this business, right? And I think that's so important for founders to take a moment. Do I want to get on the hamster wheel? Do I not? Do I want to stay in full control? And you might grow slower, but you have 100% or 80 or 90%
Yep.
of something, and you're in control of your life, and you're not getting that phone call at 10 o'clock at night on Friday.
I ask so I do a version of this kind of presentation that I did here at Rally for accelerators in San Francisco. So most of the big accelerators that you're familiar with, I'll go in and do this for their cohorts.
Yeah.
And the first question I ask them is, what is your level of personal ambition? Like, what would satisfy you personally in 10 years?
Right.
If you have exited for $50 million, of which you kept personally 30, is that an exit? How do you feel? Can you project yourself forward to that moment? And if what you're feeling as you project yourself forward and thinking about it, if what you're feeling is disappointment, then yeah, maybe you should talk to VCs. But if what you're feeling is, I had an amazing business that threw off cash, that I had a great lifestyle building, and I made a decent, let's call it generational occasionally, set of wealth at the end of that, and I employed some wonderful people, etc. If that's what you wanted, then don't take VC money. You don't need it to do those things. And it actually might hinder you from building that, because once you take VC money, that dream is immaterial to your investors. So it might be material to you, but they will push you to move faster, go harder, try scary, risky things.
Yep.
And they're right to do so based on their capital needs, but you were wrong to take their money in the first place. Yeah.
There's some stories out there, well, not some, there's a lot of stories out there where companies exit and the founders in essence get nothing.
Yep.
And somehow those stories seem to, hopefully this is not a controversial thing to bring up. I mean this with all the love to all the investors and all the founders out there, but it's a marriage. And so like, if you take venture capital money, like both parties have expectations of each other.
Yep.
And so if you miss that rocket ride, or you still get there and exit for $1 billion, but you had 2 or 3 resets along the way.
Yep.
And you experienced some cram downs and some prefs and all this kind of stuff. That may be how it shakes out. And it doesn't mean either party is bad. Stuff happens.
I agree completely. There is bad behavior in venture, but it is not one-sided bad behavior. There's bad behavior from founders, and there's bad behavior from VCs. And occasionally, events will happen that necessitate the exit of a business where nobody won.
Right.
And everyone will have sore feelings about that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you dug into the details, somebody's right and somebody's wrong.
Yeah.
But on a net basis, what happened was this didn't work for the model.
Right.
And the model demands certain things. And it's kind of a impersonal vibe. It's not you screwed me or I screwed you. It was we had a dream for this business to be X size at X rate, and it didn't get there.
Yeah.
And so we're just making the best that we can out of a bad situation. What I also say to founders is, if your goal is to get very wealthy with anywhere like a high level of likelihood, you should not be a founder in venture capital. Like, the likelihood is you're going to make no money out of this at all.
Right.
The likelihood is you probably should take that Google salary. That's like, if you want the easiest path to high wealth at the highest level of comfort, do not be a venture founder. That is obvious.
Yep.
You know? Even if you read in the stories, oh my gosh, Mira Marathi spun out of OpenAI and her company's worth $2 billion. You're not Mira. You know, like
Chris Shea was talking about this exact thing earlier this morning, and he's like, you and his thought is, you're either that early stage founder, or you join a mature company that's proven and has high growth, because there's probably options. There's a pretty good chance they're gonna, or straight up
somewhere.
That they're gonna actually go somewhere and turn into something. Which takes me to another part of your data, is stock options.
Sure.
So
I'm readjusting because this is the scary part sometimes. Yeah.
I mean, what you can read the stats of anything, right? 92% of businesses don't make it past 5 years,
right?
Roughly.
Yep.
And so nothing in life is a guarantee, and so stock options, like how do you come up with what's the right pool when you start a company? Differences between tier 1, tier 3. How many do you give to if you hire a co-founder?
Yep.
if it's not a co-founder that you're organically starting with,
Sure.
your first CRO, which a lot of times you hire way too early. People hire way too early.
100%.
So options. What do you see with option pools that people start off with, retop, all that kind of stuff?
The standard advice from a lot of venture capital is you should have 15 to 20% in the pool. We disagree. You should start that much lower, 8, 10% as your pre-seed company.
Yeah.
So that's your option pool to begin with. Just the reserved portion of your equity, right? You haven't actually issued these shares.
Yep.
And then every time you fundraise, you expand it. And that's the reason you don't start it as 20 is because then it's just diluting you, the founder,
right,
for future investors' benefit. Like, you don't need to do that.
No.
You're gonna each take on some dilution,
right,
as the pool gets bigger.
Because theoretically, you're all going to benefit.
100. They should. I mean, if you don't have a clear hiring plan, why are you hiring these people in the first place? Right? And then you just need to know from Carta, from whoever, hey, what's the market for? We need to hire 5 engineers between Series A and Series B.
Yeah.
What's the market for these people?
Yep.
How do we be competitive? All that stuff. Like, that's a data exercise. On the co-founder piece, that is an emotional exercise for sure. So first and foremost, you mentioned the differences between kinds of co-founders. Like, if you're starting this business together, 2 of you, the median split that we see is 51-49. So almost 50-50. Something like 45% of companies will just split 50-50.
Yep.
That, I am nothing against an equal split. I think that is a fantastic way to do it. If you just split equally to avoid a hard conversation, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, agreed.
51-49 is easy because then typically the CEO has 51. And if there's any question or you have to vote your shares or if there's big disagreements, you have a clear path towards speed.
Yep.
That's all that's enabling, right? And you need to move fast.
Yep.
If you have 3, 4, 5 founders, first off, why? Especially 5. Or there's companies on Carta, I think the biggest one is 11 founders.
Oh, wow.
That is avoiding hard conversations.
Yes.
Some of those people are employees, not founders. 3, 4, 5, like whatever, those are all fair numbers. In those situations, the CEO almost always takes on a bigger portion. So it becomes, it's far, I think only 10% of companies with 4 founders split 25, 25, 25, 25. It just basically doesn't happen because you're doing different things,
right,
if you have that many people.
Yep.
And usually the CEO takes on an outsized percentage. The biggest thing for founders, though, here is if you have a co-founder and the 2 of you or the 3 of you or whatever do not have vesting schedules, you are setting yourself up for pain down the road.
Thank you. Can we just say that one more time?
You need vesting schedules on your own
schedules.
equity. It seems, and I understand.
I've done this in companies.
I understand why founders recoil at that. They go, this is my business. I don't need to earn equity in my business, but you do because you are protecting yourself.
You have one fly the coop, it's painful.
If your co-founder walks out the door with 50% of your company, congrats, you can't raise money.
That's right.
There's not enough of the pie left.
That's right.
So you are protecting yourself.
Yeah.
The vesting schedule on that is typically 4 to 5 years, blah, blah, blah. But like, put your own equity on vesting.
Yeah.
This is a decade of your life.
Yep.
And I know everyone listening is in a perfect co-founder marriage, but a lot of those break up, man. Like, you don't know what's going to happen in 3 years. We're signing the prenup. Vesting is prenup.
So true.
Sign it.
We're coming to the end of the podcast here, Peter. I got a couple of just quick rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
If there's something in your industry, and you pick whatever facet of the industry you want.
Sure.
If there's something in your industry that you think people should stop doing, what would it be? I
think I have a lot of ideas here, but I usually pick on VCs. So maybe I'll pick on founders for a second, whom I deeply love. Founders should stop trying to be founders because it's cool. Especially in big venture markets like San Francisco, New York, being a founder has become very high status. You get invited to the right parties. You can say you're a tech founder, etc. Like, if you want to be a founder because you think it looks like an interesting life, just go do something else. Because like, you're just going to wind up hurting yourself and being miserable in the long term. So like, in some ways, I think being a founder has gotten too cool. Yeah. In certain areas. If you could think of one thing, like a trait or an action or something that gives you the best capability to disrupt yourself, what would that be? Disrupting yourself. From the founder perspective or from like anybody? Anybody. I mean, I think the fundamental point about that would be curiosity. Yeah. So like if you're finding your day-to-day is rote and you're just like, I know exactly what I'm doing and I do it every day, you're not probably experimenting with enough. Yeah. AI is the obvious thing there, but even if it's not AI, it's just a question of like, is my job fundamentally going to be my job this way 5 years from now? And if not, why not? And if not, will it still be me?
Yeah.
And do I want it to be me? You know, like the way we do things at Carta or at Carta Insights with data viz and everything is fundamentally way different than it was 5 years ago. And a lot of that has come from, honestly, my team, even more than me, pushing us to say, like, why are we doing it this way?
Yep.
If you can just ask yourself, why are we doing it this way? Oftentimes what you'll find is the answer is because that's how we've done it, not because that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. This has been amazing, Peter. I've wanted to meet you for a couple of years now, just following all your
Great
stuff.
to meet you
You
too,
are
man.
doing such a service to the entire ecosystem. So I'm pretty sure everybody listening knows how to find you and knows how to find the data. But just in case,
Sure.
so if I want to go find the data, how do I go find the data?
The easiest way is to go to Carta, CARTA.com/data. Everything we publish lives there, all our big reports, all the podcasts, everything. And if you check that page, probably not today, but before the end of the year, you might see some cool interactive data stuff there too. So that's coming soon.
Teaser.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
They've done something positive.
And then in LinkedIn, I just pop in Peter Walker and bam, there you are. It all pops up.
I don't like mentioning it's been awesome, the response on LinkedIn. Yeah. So you can certainly follow me there. I spend a probably inordinate amount of time on LinkedIn.
Thank you for joining us, Peter.
Thanks for having me, man. Cheers.
All right. Until next time, innovate or evaporate. We'll see y'all soon.
This episode was brought to you by Rally, the Global Cross-Sector Innovation Conference. Learn more at rallyinnovation.com.